Sit still, Aaron. Don't embarrass the family tonight. Tyler whispered that into my ear the same moment his hand clamped down on my shoulder hard enough to bruise. The whole table kept laughing at some harmless joke, pretending they didn't see the way my body jerked under his grip. Madison didn't even look up from her phone. No one ever did. That silence, that practice blindness, hurt worse than the pressure digging into my bones. I swallowed it like I always did. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't Aaron, and tonight was the last night I'd play along. My name is Lucas Carter. I'm 32 years old, a structural engineer who spends most days making sure other people's buildings don't fall apart. Funny thing is, I never realized how much of my own life had been quietly collapsing until the night my brother showed up at my door, soaked from the rain and shaking like he'd been dragged through hell. Aaron and I are identical twins, the kind that used to freak teachers out in elementary school. We had the same brown hair, same pale skin, same narrow scar above the left eyebrow from a bike crash when we were 8. Back then, switching places was just a game we played to make each other laugh. We were two halves of the same coin, inseparable, always moving in sync without even thinking about it. Our childhood wasn't perfect. Mom had this habit of saying she was fine even when her lip was split or her wrist was swollen. She'd tug her sleeve down, force a smile, and tell us to be good, to behave, to keep things peaceful. My earliest memory of fear wasn't the shouting. It was the silence afterward, that suffocating quiet, where she pretended everything was normal and expected us to pretend too. I didn't have the words for it back then, but it carved something into me, something that never healed right. Whenever she flinched, I flinched with her. Whenever she lied about being okay, it taught me the world didn't care about men who cried or women who broke. That memory didn't come back to me for years. Not until Aaron whispered, "I need help," and I saw the same kind of bruises on his ribs that Mom used to hide. Before the bruises, though, there was Madison Reed. She and Aaron met at some corporate mixer. I remember the first time he told me about her, he couldn't stop smiling. Said she was brilliant, stubborn, funny in a sarcastic way, and completely uninterested in pretending for anyone. When I finally met her, I got it. She challenged Aaron, pushed him to speak up at family dinners, grabbed his hand in crowded rooms so he wouldn't fade into the background. She felt like a spark in a house that had been dim for a long time. Her family, the Reeds, were a different story. Robert Reed looked like the kind of man who measured respect in decibels. If he wasn't the loudest voice in the room, he made sure to fix that. Elaine, his wife, had these gentle eyes that always looked watery, like she'd been crying for years, but never loudly enough to bother anyone. Their sons, Tyler and Jordan, were exactly what happens when a father raises boys to believe the world owes them obedience. The first time I met them was at a 4th of July barbecue. Tyler crushed my hand in a handshake and laughed like it was a joke. Jordan sized me up the way salesmen do when they're deciding whether they can manipulate you. They teased Aaron about his marketing job, called it soft. Madison rolled her eyes and told them to stop. Back then, everyone laughed. Even Aaron, even me. I didn't know it then, but that moment would come back to haunt us. Their wedding was beautiful. Madison walked down the aisle, glowing. Aaron looked like he couldn't breathe from happiness, and for a second, I believed he'd finally built the life Mom always told us to chase. Tyler pulled Aaron aside during the reception, clapped him on the back, and joked, "If you ever make her cry, I'll break you in half." Everyone laughed. But there was something in his eyes that didn't feel like a joke. I brushed it off. We all did. The slow unraveling came later. The first jokes that made Aaron shift uncomfortably in his seat. The times Tyler barged into their house without knocking. The nights Jordan gave unsolicited advice about parenting, finances, masculinity, like Aaron's entire existence, required his approval. Each moment small enough to ignore, each one carving deeper than the last. And Aaron, raised like me to keep the peace, swallowed it down. I didn't know how bad it had gotten. Not until the night that rain hammered my windows and Aaron knocked like he wasn't sure he deserved to be let in. I opened the door expecting a neighbor, maybe a delivery mix-up. Instead, Aaron stood there, drenched, trembling, his arms wrapped around himself like he was trying to hold the pieces together. For a split second, I didn't even recognize him. His face was swollen on one side, a green-yellow bruise climbing across his cheekbone, and his lower lip was split. His shirt clung to him, soaked through, and when he shifted his weight, he winced hard enough that I felt it in my own ribs. He stepped inside without a word. The sound of rain hitting the balcony filled the silence between us. He sat on my couch, hunched over, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. And all I could think was that my brother, my twin, the other half of everything, looked like a man who had been quietly destroyed. It took him almost 10 minutes to say anything. His voice cracked when he finally whispered, "It's Tyler and Jordan." He said it like a confession, like he expected me not to believe him. I didn't breathe for a full 3 seconds. What do you mean he didn't look at me? They've been hurting me for about a year. The details came out in broken pieces, like every word scraped his throat raw. It started with joking around, rougher than it should have been, a shove here, a slap disguised as a playful hit on the back, comments about him being soft, a reminder he wasn't man enough for their sister. Then it escalated. They used the spare key Madison had given them to show up unannounced. They'd walk into his house like they owned it. Tyler would open the fridge and start eating whatever he wanted. Jordan would sit on the couch and judge every detail of Aaron's life. One Saturday, Tyler shoved him into a wall hard enough to knock the breath out of him. The next week in the garage, Jordan held his arms behind his back while Tyler punched him in the stomach, methodical and controlled. "Just teaching you a lesson," Tyler had said. "You embarrass Maddie when you act weak." I asked him why he didn't tell Madison. He let out a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. "She knows something's wrong. She just doesn't want to know what." And then came the part that made him cry. I hadn't seen Aaron cry since we were kids at Mom's funeral. He told me Lily had seen it. She'd been standing at the top of the stairs holding Mr. Chompy. Tyler had shoved Aaron so hard that he'd hit the railing and collapsed. Madison grabbed Lily, whispered something, and took her upstairs. No questions, no outrage, just avoidance. "That's when I knew I couldn't do it anymore," he whispered. He said he didn't sleep. He barely ate. He lived every day terrified Tyler would lose control or Jordan would take it too far, or worse, one of them would scare Lily just to prove a point. Then he looked at me with these hollow, defeated eyes and said, "I need to disappear for a while, but I can't leave them alone with those men. Lucas, I need you to take my place. Just long enough for me to figure out how to survive." For a second, everything in me revolted. It was insane, dangerous. If Madison found out, the whole thing would explode. If Tyler or Jordan realized the swap, they'd kill us. But Aaron was my twin. I knew him like I knew my own hands. And I had never seen him this broken, ever. "I should have told you sooner," he murmured. "You're here now," I said. "Lucas, please." His voice cracked on that last word. And I knew the decision was already made before I said it out loud. "I'll do it." The relief on his face scared me. It was too big, too desperate, like he'd been drowning for a year and someone finally pulled him out. But underneath that relief, something else settled inside me, something cold, sharp, calculated. Mom used to say silence keeps a house from shattering. She was wrong. Silence is what lets the cracks spread until the whole thing collapses. I wasn't going to be silent anymore. The switch happened 3 days after Aaron showed up at my condo. We spent every hour rehearsing his routines, the way he walked slightly hunched, the way he apologized, before speaking, the nervous laugh he'd developed, the way he held his coffee mug with both hands, as if bracing himself. I memorized everything down to which light switches he never used, because Madison said they made the living room too yellow. Driving to his house that first night felt like slipping into a life that wasn't mine, but was already crushing me with weight. The Reed house stood in its usual perfect suburban silence, a neat lawn, warm lights, glowing from inside a place that looked safe from every angle except the one that mattered. When Madison walked in that evening with Lily bouncing beside her, she barely glanced at me. "Traffic was hell," she muttered, kicking off her shoes. "Did you start dinner?" Her voice carried no warmth, just routine. She didn't notice anything off my posture, my breathing, the way my eyes scanned the room. It scared me how easily she accepted the version of Aaron she'd trained herself to see. That first night was quiet. I read Lily a bedtime story doing the velociraptor voice Aaron had taught me, and she giggled in a way that cracked me open for a moment. She hugged Mr. Chompy, leaned against me, and whispered, "Daddy, can you stay with me until I fall asleep?" I did, and I promised myself silently, fiercely, that I wouldn't let the world hurt her the way it hurt him. But the peace didn't last. Tyler arrived 2 nights later. No knocking, no text. Just the sound of a key turning in the lock and heavy footsteps on the hardwood floor. "Hey, little man," he called out, voice dripping with mock affection. "Where's Maddie?" I stayed in character, head down, shoulders drawn, and voice soft. "She's picking up Lily from daycare." Tyler grabbed a beer from the fridge without asking and took a long drink, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. He stared at me with a smirk the kind bullies wear when they smell fear. "You look jumpy." "Long day pushing papers. I didn't answer fast enough." He stepped closer, the sour smell of beer on his breath. "Say something, Aaron." "Just tired," I murmured. He snorted. "You're always tired. Maybe if you hit the gym once in a while instead of crying about your workload." He shoved my shoulder. "Not hard. Not yet. Testing me." I let myself stumble the way Aaron did. Tyler grinned like he'd proven a point. For the next 15 minutes, he prowled around the kitchen like he owned the place, critiquing the groceries, the dishes in the sink, the mail on the counter. He picked up one of Lily's drawings and scoffed. "Looks like she got your talent." "None." I felt a flash of heat in my chest. I forced it down. Evidence, not anger, not yet. When Madison got home, he switched instantly into concerned brother mode. Loud laugh, back slaps. "Just checking in on your boy, Maddie?" She smiled gratefully. Blindly. That smile told me everything about why the abuse had lasted this long. She needed her brother's approval more than she needed her husband's safety. After he left, she didn't ask why I was tense, why my shirt was wrinkled from his grip, why the kitchen felt colder than when she'd left. She sat on the couch scrolling through her phone while I cleaned, performing the quiet routine Aaron had lived inside for years. The second escalation came 3 days later. Jordan this time. He showed up Saturday morning with takeout in hand. "Lunch," he said, stepping inside before I could answer. "Thought we could talk." His talks were interrogations. He sat across from me at the kitchen island, tapping the plastic fork against the container rhythmically. "How's work?" he asked. "Fine." "You say fine a lot." You know that he leaned forward. "Dad thinks Maddie deserves better. A man who actually leads, makes decisions, provides. It's going well." I tried again. Jordan tilted his head, eyes sharp. "You don't convince anyone when you talk like that." He took a slow bite of his food. "I've been thinking, if Maddie ever wanted custody, you know courts favor the mother, especially when the dad is unstable." I felt the hidden recorder in my pocket vibrate slightly with movement. Every word was being saved. "I'm not unstable," I said quietly. He smiled. "Well, that depends who tells the story, doesn't it?" Later that afternoon, when Madison returned with Lily, Jordan hugged her and whispered something in her ear that made her frown before smoothing her expression back to neutral. Then he shot me a look that said he'd already won. The third escalation arrived disguised as a near disaster. Jordan spotted the clock camera. He walked past the mantel, paused, leaned in. "You got a new clock?" His fingers brushed the edge. I felt ice crawl up my spine. If he pulled the front panel, the lens would be visible. Before I could react, Lily ran into the room crying because she had dropped Mr. Chompy and ripped one of his seams. Jordan turned automatically at the sound, and I stepped in front of the clock like I'd been reaching for her. The moment passed, barely. But it showed me how thin my margin of error was. Every hour, every breath had to be perfect. By week 3, the house no longer felt like a home. It felt like a pressure chamber. One wrong breath and everything would explode. Every drawer Tyler slammed, every smooth threat Jordan slipped into casual conversation, every silent glance from Madison, all of it built into a steady hum of danger under my skin. The next escalation came midweek. Tyler showed up earlier than usual, still in his construction gear boots, leaving mud across the entryway. He didn't bother taking them off. "Maddie working late?" he asked, tossing his gloves onto the counter. I nodded. Good, he said, rolling his shoulders as if preparing for something physical. We need a chat man to man. The garage door creaked open behind us. Tyler jerked his head. Out there. I followed him into the garage, the overhead bulb flickering like a bad omen. The cold air bit into my arms. Tyler circled me slowly like a predator studying prey that never fought back. I've been patient with you, he said, but you make things hard, Aaron. You disappoint her. You embarrass her. I kept my voice quiet. I'm trying. Try harder. He shoved me against the tool bench. Harder this time. My ribs flared with pain. Do you hear me? I hear you. Good. Jordan appeared at the garage entrance, hands in pockets, expression calm as stone. Dad says Maddie cried on the phone last night, he said. You know how that makes us feel. Tyler cracked his knuckles. Yeah, makes me feel like teaching you something. He lunged. For the next 30 seconds, I took the blows, controlled, measured. Enough to hurt, not enough to cause permanent damage. Tyler was careful about that. He wanted to dominate, not destroy. Jordan held my arms once the way Aaron described, firm, clinical, like he'd done it 100 times. Stop, Jordan finally said, letting me go. We don't want him looking too rough. Maddie gets suspicious. Tyler grinned. He'll just say he fell. He wiped sweat from his forehead. He always does. My breaths came shallow. But inside, something dark and steady was forming. I'd caught the perfect angles on the garage camera, both faces clear, audio pristine, each hit recorded time-stamped. Later that night, Madison saw the bruises while I changed in the bathroom. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Again, she said, God, Aaron, you're so clumsy. I stared at her reflection in the mirror. She didn't flinch, didn't look concerned, just annoyed. You don't want to ask what happened? I said softly. She shrugged. I'm tired, Aaron. I don't have the energy for your issues tonight. Her refusal to see the truth hurt more than the bruises. I wondered how many times Aaron had stood exactly where I was hoping she'd look up just once and recognize his pain. She never did. By week 4, the abuse escalated, but so did the cracks in their empire. One afternoon at Lily's preschool, her teacher pulled me aside. She's been drawing unusual things, she said. Men pushing other men. A small figure hiding behind stairs. She hesitated. Is everything okay at home? My throat tightened. We're working on some things. The teacher nodded slowly, clearly unconvinced. That night, I sent the teacher's comments to Aaron at the cabin. For the first time, he didn't just sound relieved. He sounded ashamed. I didn't know she saw that much, he whispered. God, Lucas, what did I do? You protected her the only way you knew, I told him, and now we're fixing it. But the worst escalation came in week 5. It was raining hard, washing the house in the same metallic smell from the night Aaron arrived at my condo. Tyler and Jordan came together, both already hyped up on adrenaline, maybe alcohol too, maybe ego alone. They stormed into the house without greeting me, their shoes pounding the floor. Garage Tyler barked. Jordan locked the door behind us. This time they didn't waste time with speeches. Tyler threw the first punch immediately straight to the ribs. I grunted but stayed upright. Jordan moved behind me, not holding my arms this time but blocking the exit. You know, Tyler said between punches, Maddie says you've been distant, quiet. That stress is getting to you. He slammed me against the wall. Can't have that. My vision blurred for a second, but I kept my face passive, compliant. Every instinct screamed at me to fight back, but not yet. Not here. Not without cameras positioned exactly right. Then came the line that changed everything. Jordan leaned in, voice low, almost conversational. Would be a shame if Lily saw you like this. Might think her dad is too weak to protect her. The coldness of it punched deeper than Tyler's fists. Not a threat of violence. A threat of identity. A threat meant to break a father from the inside out. That's when I felt the ghost of Mom's old bruises. The sickening echo of her whisper, it's fine. As long as we keep quiet, no more quiet. When they left laughing, telling me to man up, I locked the garage door behind them and slid down to the concrete. My hands trembled. My ribs screamed. But something inside me had gone deadly still. This was the breaking point, not because they hurt me, but because they thought they still owned the story. And I was done playing their version of it. By week 6, I had enough evidence to drown them, enough footage to bury them, enough audio to destroy every lie they'd built their power on. But I needed one last piece exposure. Public, undeniable, irreversible. That opportunity came packaged as a celebration Robert and Elaine's 40th anniversary dinner. A perfect public stage, a perfect audience of believers, a perfect moment to set fire to their illusion of the Reed family legacy. The night was set, the trap was ready, and none of them had the slightest clue the man they'd been hurting wasn't Aaron, it was me. The night of Robert and Elaine's anniversary felt wrong from the moment we pulled into their driveway. The Reed house glowed warm and gold through the big bay windows, the kind of light that tries too hard to say, "We're a happy family." Cars lined both sides of the street. Laughter spilled out into the cold evening air. Inside, everything was polished, the silverware, the smiles, the lies. Madison walked ahead of me with Lily in her arms, greeting relatives who barely glanced my way. I kept my posture small, my voice low, the perfect imitation of Aaron's beaten-down presence. But under my skin, something sharp and electric pulsed the knowledge that every second brought us closer to the moment everything snapped. Dinner was long, loud. Robert stood at the head of the table giving a speech about 40 years of love and loyalty, and everyone clapped like they believed it. Tyler and Jordan sat across from me, laughing, nudging each other, so confident they'd built an empire no one dared question. Jordan caught my eye once, smirked-mouthed, "Behave." The irony almost made me laugh. When the plates were cleared and the wine poured, I knew it was time. I stood, not quickly, not dramatically, just enough to make chairs scrape and conversations die out one by one. 40 people turned toward me with mild confusion. I never stood at these events, never spoke, never asked for attention. Robert frowned. "Aaron, you need something, son." I stepped around my chair, moving toward the TV mounted on the wall. My heartbeat was steady, cold, focused. "I do," I said. "I need to talk about family." The room shifted. Subtle but noticeable. Madison stiffened beside me. Tyler narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Jordan leaned forward, elbows on the table, ready to pounce at the first sign of weakness. "Not tonight," Madison hissed. "Please, Aaron, sit down." I didn't. "I want to talk about what family does," I continued, my voice quiet but clear. "Under this roof, behind closed doors, when no one's paying attention." A ripple moved through the room. Robert forced a laugh. "Son, this is a celebration." I clicked the remote. The TV screen lit up. For a split second, no one understood what they were seeing. The footage opened with a hallway shot of Tyler letting himself into Aaron's house without knocking. His voice echoed through the speakers. "Hey, little man, where's Maddie?" It felt like the oxygen vanished. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered, "Is that—" "Tonight, no," Madison breathed, shaking her head. "No, no, no, Aaron, what is this?" Tyler stood abruptly. "Turn that off." I didn't. The next clip rolled. Jordan sitting across the kitchen island, tapping his fork against the takeout box. "Courts favor the mother," he said on screen, "especially when the dad looks unstable." A low murmur rippled through the guests. Elaine covered her mouth. Robert's face drained of color. Then came the footage from the garage, Tyler slamming me into the wall, Jordan holding my arms, Tyler's voice loud and unmistakable. "Try harder. Do you hear me?" Jordan's cold whisper would be a shame if Lily saw you like this. The room froze. Madison stumbled backward, gripping the edge of the table as if the floor tilted beneath her. "Tyler, tell them it's fake. Tell them this is edited." Tyler tried. "This is taken out of context. He provoked us. He knows what he did. What did he do?" "Tyler?" a relative asked, voice trembling. Tyler's jaw twitched. He had no answer. I clicked to the next clip. Jordan talking to someone off camera. "We can make him look unstable. Easy." The words hit the room like a dropped bomb. Robert turned toward his son's, eyes wide. "Tell me you didn't say that." Jordan swallowed hard. Dad, listen. We were protecting Maddie. He was stressing her out. He wasn't right. And you fixed that by beating him," someone snapped. Tyler lunged toward the TV, grabbing for the HDMI cable, but I had planned for that. Even when the screen went black, the Bluetooth speaker behind the centerpiece kept playing the audio. Tyler's threats, Jordan's legal manipulation, the sound of fists on flesh every recorded second filled the room inescapable. "No, stop, turn it off," Tyler roared. Guests recoiled as he raged in the middle of the dining room. Women pulled their kids close. Men muttered curses. The illusion of the perfect Reed family shattered right in front of them. Robert staggered backward into his chair, tears collecting in his eyes. "My God," he whispered. "My boys." Just then the front door opened. 2 uniformed officers stepped inside. The air snapped tight. "Tyler Reed, Jordan Reed," one officer announced. "You're under arrest for multiple counts of assault, harassment, and criminal threats." Chaos erupted. Tyler cursed. Jordan shook his head violently, pleading, "Dad. Dad, tell them this is wrong, tell them." Robert didn't move, didn't speak. He just stared at his sons like he didn't recognize them. When the officers cuffed them, Tyler twisted to look at me. "You're dead," he spat. "You hear me? You're—" I stepped closer, calm, steady. "I'm not Aaron." The room went silent again. Madison stared at me, horror blooming across her face. What are you talking about?" "I'm Lucas," I said. "Aaron's twin. Your husband hasn't been in that house for 7 weeks. Mouths dropped. Elaine gasped out loud. Several guests whispered, clutching each other. Madison shook her head violently. No, that's why Woody. Why would you?" "Because the man you married was being beaten in his own home," I said, "and you didn't see it. Or you didn't want to." She broke, completely. Her knees buckled and she dropped into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. But for the first time in a year, the sobs weren't about her. They were about the truth. As Tyler and Jordan were dragged out, the room watched in stunned silence. And for the first time since I walked into this nightmare, I let myself breathe. The Reed Empire had collapsed. But my work wasn't done yet. After the patrol cars rolled away and the last guests hurried out in shaken silence, the Reed house felt hollow, too big, too bright, like a stage after the actors abandoned the play. Madison sat alone at the dining table, mascara-streaked hands trembling around a half-finished glass of wine. She didn't look at me, not once. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she finally understood what her silence had cost. I walked past her without a word. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't break her further, and honestly, I wasn't sure she deserved the pieces. Outside, the air was cold enough to sting. I stood on the porch for a long moment, watching the red and blue lights fade down the street. For 7 weeks, I'd lived inside Aaron's life, his routines, his fears, his exhaustion. The bruises on my ribs would fade. But the memories wouldn't. Neither would the realization of how close he'd come to losing everything. My phone buzzed. A message from Aaron. "Did it work?" I typed back. "It's done. Come home soon." He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice cracked through the speaker. "Thank you, Lucas. I can't believe it's over." But it wasn't. Not really. The legal process had only just begun. The police had the evidence, but plea deals, hearings, custody evaluations, those were battles still waiting for him, for us. And Tyler and Jordan weren't the type to accept consequences quietly. Men like them didn't crumble. They clawed. They blamed. They looked for cracks to slip through. I'd seen the hatred in Tyler's eyes as he was cuffed, the fear in Jordan's, the kind of fear that makes dangerous men unpredictable. I walked to my truck, opened the door, and pulled out the hard drive I'd locked in the glove compartment. Every file, every photograph, every recording duplicated, encrypted, backed up in 3 different places, evidence they couldn't erase, insurance in case they tried. They thought they had destroyed Aaron long before I stepped into his life. They thought beating him, isolating him, threatening his daughter would keep him small and silent. All they did was hand me the one weapon I needed, their own voices. And I wasn't done using them yet. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit subscribe. Stories like this don't end just because the truth finally comes out. There are courtrooms, custody hearings, quiet nights, when the past still knocks on the door, and sometimes the people who hurt you try to rebuild the very walls they shattered. So stay with me, because what happened after that night changed all of us, me, Aaron, and especially Lily. And if you've ever wondered what real justice looks like when the dust starts to settle, trust me, this story isn't over.